and welcome to Bordertown Strange with Pam and Jess, and our special guest and good friend, psychic medium Kristi Campbell.
Hello.
Tonight, we are going to bring you along for the ride for part 3 of Time Anomalies, missing time, gain time, time slips, and all the fun that goes along with that. So, yay! We'll start out with Jess. Would you like to do some housekeeping?
Absolutely. All right. So, okay. Firstly, thank you to all of our new subscribers and followers on both Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much. For all of you on Facebook, please take a moment to like and share. And for everyone on YouTube, remember to give us that thumbs up and hit that bell so you can be the first to know when we go live and we can bring you lots of new content. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts if you want to listen in the car. We encourage everyone to hop on the chat, join the conversation, and stick around for the very end to play a round of the notebook games.
Woohoo!
Coming up soon is the 2024 Bordertown Paracon, held in Caney, Kansas at the Rec Center, Saturday, September 28th. There will be around 40 speakers, panelists, and presenters. A full schedule, including 3 panels that will focus on hauntings, Bigfoots, and cryptids, and the alien and UFO phenomena. 4 presentations, a medium, a tarot reader, an astrologist, vendors, concessions, door prizes, and raffles. And for more information, check out our website, www.bordertownparanormal.com, or find our Facebook page for much more information.
Okay, hang on just a second, Jess. You are,
Okay.
Enzo said you're echoing really badly. So I'm not sure.
No.
I don't hear an echo.
You don't? Okay, so Kristi, you have headphones in.
Uh-huh.
You might check, do you have the volume up on your phone?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, but you might turn yours down just a little bit because that may be where the echo's coming from.
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Okay.
Hello.
That's
Is that
it.
better?
That did
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Good deal.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you know what? I'm going to start back over a little bit again. If I was echoing that badly, I can imagine I was probably pretty hard to understand. So take a
okay,
two.
everybody in the comments, are we? Yep, Enzo said that was it. So yay, good deal.
Yay!
Okay, all right. So take a 2. Thank you, Mr. Enzo, for that. Thank you to all of our subscribers and followers. For those of you on Facebook, please take a moment to like and share. And for everyone on YouTube, remember to give us that thumbs up and ring that bell so you can be the first to know when we go live. You can also find us wherever you get your podcast in case you want to listen in the car. We encourage everyone to hop on the chats, join in the conversation, and stick around until the end for a few rounds of the notebook game. Coming up soon is the 2024 Bordertown Paracon, held in Caney, Kansas at the Rec Center, Saturday, September 28th. There'll be around 40 speakers, panelists, and presenters, a full schedule including 3 panels that will focus on hauntings, Bigfoot, and cryptids, and the UFO alien phenomena. 4 presentations, a medium, tarot reader, an astrologist, vendors, concessions, prizes and raffles. For more information, check out our website, www.bordertownparanormal.com, and find our Facebook page. The Paracon is the only free Paracon in the U.S. for the public ages 12 and older. And after we get done talking about missing time and time slips and stuff like that today, we're going to interview Miss Kristi a little bit because she is going to be one of our presenters this year.
Yes, I'm so excited.
And yes, she is also our house medium and has been for the last few years. So yeah, we're going to hear all about that.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So are we ready for the What the Weird Word of the Week?
We are.
Ooh, yes.
Things. There we go. All righty. So
no, I'm hearing an echo.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, how do we sound it out? Any echoes there?
Any echoes?
Maybe it's just me.
Okay, so our what the weird word of the week is highway hypnosis. And this was Jess's word. Do you want to do it, Jess, or would you like me to read it?
Sure, I can do it. So,
Okay.
highway hypnosis. So, this is a very time slippy, lost time type of word. We don't use it a whole lot, but it's something I think everyone should kind of touch on just a little bit to kind of understand some of the stories we're going to be telling, that we have told, we're going to be telling tonight. So highway hypnosis, psychologists have long identified this state that drivers can fall into and actually shift states of consciousness unknowingly. Drivers may make it to their destination in record time with no knowledge of how they got there. Or they may report out-of-time phenomena like antique cars, unfamiliar buildings, and roadways they've never seen. They also often report making it to their destination later than usual, or will inexplicably end up somewhere else entirely, sometimes with hours of missing time. So we hear this a lot. Stories about people driving down that same chunk of road they've driven down for years, and they know it takes 30 minutes to get home, but they show up 10 minutes later and they're like, how did I make it in 10 minutes?
Yep.
Or they end up someplace really strange that they've never seen before. 3 hours away from where they were supposed to be, but they made it in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is this phenomenon. Now, other theories for driving slips. So we're not saying that highway hypnosis is the cause of all of this. Absolutely not.
Correct.
None of us truly know what this is. But there's also other theories that go along with this. So a lot of people think that this is a type of UFO encounter or an alien encounter. Where you encounter the missing time and you don't quite remember where you were at that time. So we've got the alien UFO side of it. And then we also have another side of it where people believe these are dimensional slips happening due to roadways being liminal spaces. And I have a feeling that liminal spaces is going to have to be another word of the week for another time.
Yes.
Yeah. But basically a liminal space, spaces where people are always on the move. Nobody stays there for very long. It's an in and out type of situation. So roadways and elevators and
doorways,
and even big public spaces like hospitals where there's a lot of action, like especially like in the ER area, where there's going to be a lot of movement and people in and out. Those are liminal spaces. And we have found, well, not just us, many researchers have found that liminal spaces tend to be very big hot spots for not only hauntings, but dimensional slips and all sorts of insanity. Yeah. So a really good book to read if you want to read a little bit more on highway hypnosis. A really good one is Jenny Randall's Time Storms.
Yes, it's very good.
Yeah. There's a whole section on kind of how they feel that it kind of works in different situations. So excellent read. Take a look at that if you ever get the chance. So I think that's good. That's the end of our What the Weird Word of the Week. We hope everyone learned something. All right. So on with the show. Part 3 of Time Anomalies with our special guest, medium Kristi Campbell, who has some awesome stories of her own that we're going to hear about tonight too.
Thank you. I have some new ones too.
Oh, good deal. That's exciting. Ooh. Oh, we always like stories that we haven't heard yet.
Yes.
Yeah. And Lord knows, I'm sure they're all tired of hearing our stories over and over again.
You guys have great stories.
I ran across a new one earlier today, actually, and it made me think of highway hypnosis, so I went ahead and saved it. I found it on Reddit, and it's from quite a few years ago, and I'm just going to kind of read it so you guys can take it in. A couple of friends were taking a trip to the beach one day, which is about 45 minutes away from the city that we live in. I must add that we live in a desert, a reason why. It's just to let you know that it never rains. Anyway, these guys took the highway around 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Suddenly it started raining and they had to stop on the side of the road because the wind was so hard. They said it felt like an hour or so before they were able to start driving again. They finally reached their destination and the sun was at its highest. They stayed there having fun until the sun started to set. It was probably around 7 p.m. already, and they felt tired, so they made their way back. Suddenly, the rain and wind started up again. It was dark already when frogs started to appear all around them. They said they saw the frogs as if the rain was throwing the frogs at them. They got scared and they started to drive back home, but when they finally reached home, it was Saturday at 2 p.m. and the sun was still up. I always thought they were just high. That's the rational explanation that I had for this incident.
Wow.
So somewhere on the route back home, it actually became daylight again and 2 o'clock in the afternoon as opposed to 7 p.m., before they even, were able to head back home. So I thought that was a cool one.
That is.
That is a cool one. So weird.
That is. Especially with the frogs, because you do hear stories of frogs and different things that fall from the sky. And like in Jenny Randall's Time Storms, there's a lot of talk of, and we see it not just in her book, but in a lot of different stories about how a fog will, you'll either drive into what looks like a cloud or a fog bank, or it will descend upon the vehicle or descend upon you wherever you are. So that was kind of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another really good book to read if you want some really fascinating stories is Rosemary Ellen Guiley's Slips in Time and Space.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great one.
It's a really good one. So it's not all her stories. Her stories are in here too, but she took a collection up from Fate magazine of the ones that she had kind of personally researched out herself. And it's got a lot of very famous authors in it, and they kind of give their own touches on what they believe is going on, and they kind of tell the stories from their point of view. So it's just really interesting. You kind of get to dig into their minds a little bit about what they think of the scenarios and what's happening. So super interesting. Get that one too.
We've really pushed those two books these last 3 episodes, and for good reason. They're excellent, especially on this topic.
Yeah, the Jenny Randall's book is the one that got me really started on it. Like, I thought, I was like everybody else. I was like, ooh, missing time and time slips. That's a weird little thing, but I hadn't really thought of it. Like, really thought about it. What's happening? What's the ins and outs of it? And then my husband bought me the Time Storms book by Jenny Randall's, and I couldn't put it down. It was one of those books that I read straight through. Yep. At like 3 o'clock in the morning, I was finally putting it down, bleary-eyed. But with all of these new ideas and craziness running around in my head, and I was like, I've got to have more. I have to have more. So
this was when we really started branching out from ghost hunting specifically and got more into cryptids and different high strangeness. If I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was one of the first books that you and I both had separately that we got. And we were like, hey, there's something to this. We need to start digging into these things.
Yeah.
So this is one that we've been interested in for quite a while.
Yeah.
So did you want to do Hoya Bachu and get through that? Because
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let me bring it back up here.
So last week I started in telling everybody about, I had done some research to try to find actual spots on the earth where multiple time slips and time anomalies seem to occur there almost naturally in a way. And last week we had talked about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and all the insanity that happens there. And this time we're going to move to Romania.
Ooh.
Right? Spooky place as it is. So there's going to be several pictures with this, and I'm going to kind of cue Pam when to move through them, because this place is almost like its own Skinwalker Ranch. It has so much going on in it. Yeah. So, so you're right now, if you're not if you're listening and not watching, we are looking at some of the weirdest trees. They wiggle like S's. And that's how the
Weird.
trees grow in the Hoya Baciu forest.
They almost look like they were hit by massive winds and bent into place when they were very young. And then went to, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It almost looks like a fishing hook where the bottom curve is flat against the ground. And then the very end of it is the trunk that goes into the ground. But then it curves back up towards the sky.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Go ahead and flip to the next picture. There should be some more trees. Yeah. So you can imagine, first of all, if there wasn't anything else wrong with this place, you would still be unnerved by walking through it.
Yeah.
Just the trees, and the canopy of the trees is very high, so it makes it very dark inside.
It's very Tim Burton-esque.
Yes, it is. It's very Tim Burton-esque. So I'm going to go over some of the stuff that happens in the Baciu. So people report strange symptoms. They report nausea, fatigue, anxiety, dizziness, feelings of being watched. They also report failing electronics, batteries draining, weird lights, hauntings, ghosts, shadow figures, strange otherworldly noises, weird magnetic fields, electromagnetic phenomena, UFO encounters, strange creatures, wildlife acting oddly and out of character, missing time, time slips, and weird burns and red marks that will pop up on their hands and their skin. Right? It's a weird, freaky place. So we're going to go into a little bit of the history of it. Hoya Baciu is located in Transylvania, Romania. Oh my gosh, Romania.
Hey, Jess, can you spell that for me? And I'll put it in our chat if anyone wants to look it up.
Hoia.
Okay.
Baciu.
Is it all one word or two separate?
No, it's two. Hoya Baciu. Yeah. In Transylvania, so spooky already with the whole vampire thing going on. It's a super dense forest that is relatively small, actually. It's only a little over 600 acres. It's named after Hoya Baciu, a sheep herder who went into the forest along with his 200 sheep and never came out.
Oh.
And they were never seen again, not a whisper of them. So along with all this phenomena, it's been known for its strangely bent and bending trees and a mystery clearing at its center. Can you pull up that picture, Pam?
Yep.
There we go. So if you are at home listening or in your car listening, it's a very small forested area when you kind of see it overall, but there is a gigantic clearing in the middle of it with not a speck of anything inside of it. They don't know why nothing grows here. The soil and everything has been tested, and they can't find anything different in the soil in the circle than in the forested part.
Yeah, and there's
Do they think it might be like a vortex?
Well, that's the only assumption they have if you take out all natural things.
There's a lot of phenomena that happens in that circle too. You guys are familiar with Josh Gates, one of his earliest shows. He had a cameraman that was actually a skeptic. Well, even more than a skeptic, he was a non-believer. And he was setting crisscross applesauce in the middle of this, and they have him on camera. Something comes through and picks him up and bodily throws him backwards, and you can tell. I mean, he's not jumping and doing it. You can see he goes like a rag doll back.
That's right.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
That
was quite a few years ago.
That's a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. This is back when they didn't make a lot of money, because I remember the pilot that took them to this place. It's like something fell off the plane, one of the doors or something, and they had to turn around and go back because they were like, we're going to die.
Right.
That we have to deal with here.
Mhm.
So there's things like that that have been reported for a long time, and that was a fascinating one that actually got caught on camera.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
there's another one, this very famous photo. Do you have the? Can you pull up the photo of the UFO?
Hmm. Is it the? Let me double check, make sure it's the next one. Yeah, I think it is. Yep.
Yeah. So this is an actual photo that was taken inside of that clearing. It was taken by Emil Bornea in 1968. He was standing within the circle. He was a military technician at the time, and he took several photos of this UFO very close up. The photo is actually pretty good from being from the 60s. There's actually many more photos of UFOs that have been taken from this clearing by different people. This is the one I chose to kind of put up for everyone to see.
Mhm.
Yeah, and many more things have been photographed inside of the forest itself too. Did you want to poke through some of those other pictures that I sent? So here is a picture of some of the weird creatures and shadow things that have been caught behind the trees.
He's not
Stop.
near as sneaky as he thinks he is he?
No.
It's like your cat trying to hide behind the curtains in the living room or something.
Right.
Yeah. You maybe the next one. Enzo.
Enzo
This
said
is
a
a
peeker.
peeker. Yeah, so these are the weird faces that they've gotten
Mm.
in photos. If you look close enough, it looks like a gentleman.
It's a very clear face. You can even see a mustache and everything.
Yeah.
Hmm. I bet the nature spirits have a lot to play with that as well.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You move to the next one. I think there's one more. Yeah. So this is the dog creature, or I'm assuming it's probably like a dog man that often
Mhm.
gets photographed and seen in the forest. So you can just barely see a hint of it.
That's freaky.
Yeah, but if you get online and look, there's hundreds of these photos that people have taken. People actually travel to Romania just to go see this forest and take as many photos as they can, and they come back thinking they didn't get anything and then find all of this stuff in their photos. So it's a really interesting place.
This thing
Mhm.
reminds me of like a man-sized fae or something, you know.
Mhm.
Oh, you know what it reminds me of is the creature out of Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh yeah.
What it looks like. Enzo said, "Do not pet." That is correct.
Yeah.
Definitely not. But yeah, that is
All right. So time anomalies. So we're starting off on that original one, how the place got its name, the Hoya Bachu. It's named after the sheep farmer that went in and never came out, right? But that's not the only one associated with it. And I didn't put them all down because there's lots of them, but I put down the ones that I thought were really interesting or pertinent to our situation here. So the first account on record after the sheep guy is about 100 years old, and it's with disappearances and reappearances of local villagers, with some going missing completely, much like the colony of Roanoke.
Interesting.
I'm going to pop this down for a second. There we go.
So this phenomenon, this original story phenomenon is ongoing. So this original village over 100 years ago just kind of went missing one day. Like the village was just empty. But those people from that original village, supposedly, if the stories are true, have been popping up occasionally, one or two at a time. They'll walk out of the forest.
Do they sing and dance?
Weird. Into the woods. No.
But yeah, they report people like just walking out of the forest, just completely confused, dressed in the wrong type of clothing for our time period, and not knowing what has gone on. And they will literally say things like, "I just left my village like 15 minutes ago."
So
And
there is
wow.
the people that they run into.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So another account that I found involved a young girl who was around the age of 5, who wandered into the forest and went missing, only to reappear an entire year later.
Oh.
Seemingly perfectly healthy, wearing the exact same clothing she was dressed in when she went in. And she was also completely confused, claiming she was only gone a few minutes. She also had not aged.
Interesting.
Very.
Right? So that one I thought was very, oh my goodness. Another story I found is about a woman who stumbled out of the forest looking completely confused. No one knew who the heck she was. And after searching her pockets, they found a coin from the 15th century. Yeah. She was taken in by a local family, and it was later assumed that she might have been one of those original villagers that had gone missing, the 100 years prior.
Wow.
But she actually had money on her that was dated from that time.
That's really
So
nice little piece of actual proof, evidence.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's way more stories than that, but I wasn't gonna, sit here and just repeat them all.
And I know we brought this up. I think so. Our last episode we focused a lot on Sally House, but the one before that, we had Enzo was on with us, and we talked a lot about how some of these remind us of David Paletti's missing 411s, and that's kind of what this is reminding me of a little bit. Is how people are disappearing for a long time and coming back in perfect health and looking normal and just confused, not knowing where they've been, or just, I stepped away for just a moment kind of thing. So that's very reminiscent of that.
That makes me think of makes me think of the standing stones, like in Ireland, like, how they used to say people used to disappear through the stones, like Mary Maids and things like that. Like that, it's everywhere for sure.
Yeah, and that's fun because you're right, it is everywhere, and we're looking at it. These things are happening in Romania, Transylvania, and then we see Canada and U.S. There's tons and tons and tons of prolific reporting on it, and like you said, Ireland, it is everywhere. It may be called different where it is, but yeah, it's so reminiscent.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Do you want me to pull the pictures back up?
I'm sure if you want, I'll do the Thompson Park one real fast, and then we can continue on. Maybe we can do some, we can have Kristi tell us some of her experiences.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, so the picture we're looking at right now is a secondary. This is some of the strange lights that are seen above the empty circle at the Hoya.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's just everything you can think of happens in this place. It's right. It kind of reminds me of like the Meadow Project or Skinwalker.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hot spot for anything and everything.
So this particular picture, the light almost looks like a beacon, but it doesn't start from the ground. It starts about 2/3 of the way, or a third of the way up above the tree line. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing, and this is the thing that I thought that was the most interesting about this particular picture. There is this huge blaring light in the sky, and it has not lit any of the trees below it.
Oh, you know what? You're right. It is not.
That speaks of vortex material right there.
It is. Enzo said, "Weird. Do all of the lights have a beam like that? Could be a portal opening at a different time of day shining through." It's true. You may be able
to
see
true.
Night than day.
That kind of reminds me of the Beaver Sands portal. They all reported seeing that huge green flash of light before people would disappear. Maybe this is that same situation, only it's just being photographed.
Potentially,
yeah. It is a black and white picture, so we have no idea what color the flash could be either.
Yeah. It's hard to tell. It's just bright. Ian said it could be a long exposure of a flare beyond the trees.
Perhaps. Anything can be, I do think it's odd that you can't see anything reflected onto the trees below. You would think that would really light the sky up.
Right.
It's almost like they're in shadow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Super strange.
I need to find a new word. I say everything's interesting. I need to come up. I need to hit the thesaurus. Come up. with
I
some
gave
better-
you one. I said to say it's intriguing.
Oh, it's intriguing.
Or enthralling.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Thought provoking.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a great one.
Enzo asked, are those stars in the background? I have no idea. I don't believe this was taken at night because the clearing is so well lit. It would have had to have been like a full moon to have gotten the exposure like that.
Yeah, it may just be some anomalies on the photograph itself, because if you look towards the trees, like above the B where it says Hoya Bachu, is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Above the B, you can see one of those that looks like what would look like
it could just, well, it's also old, it's an old photo.
Yeah,
it could be anything.
Yeah.
So, and it could be something else in the sky all around that. If who knows?
Yeah, who
absolutely.
It could be craft
could be a
or
flare,
something
maybe.
else.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Something, yeah.
Because it is kind of circular if you look at it.
Yeah. So go ahead and move to the Thompson Park one. All right. So Thompson Park is in Watertown, New York. And they've actually kind of grasped on to the...
They leaned into it, didn't they?
Yeah. To the craziness that goes on there. So the weird stuff has been reported there since the 1930s, or at least when it was starting to be reported. There is sightings of mists and apparitions, unexplained noises, Bigfoot encounters, UFO encounters. But the most famous is the vortex. So they claim that they have an area. It's actually just outside. There's a golf course at the park. Just outside the golf course, there's a supposed vortex. And people have been known to walk through it accidentally, and they'll end up on the other side of the park. They'll disappear for an hour and then pop back up in the same spot again. All sorts of weirdness.
Interesting.
I pulled up a couple of stories. I found one from 2018.
That's relatively recent.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to find, something that was kind of recent to us. Two college girls walked into the park at 8:30 p.m., knowing that the park closed at 9. They were kind of being snoopy and being naughty. We're going to stay out past the curfew. They took a roped off hiking trail, but to go snoop around, and got lost for about 45 minutes, but managed to cut through the trees and come out of the golf course through that. And they checked their phones before heading back to their car and realized it was 4 a.m. in the morning.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Consequences.
They lost about 6 hours. No joke. Yeah.
So is the golf course part of that park?
Yes. Yeah.
It'd be like, I'm gonna golf, and then your golf ball disappears for like 6 hours.
I would suppose that's kind of like a hazard, right? It's like a water hazard.
For sure, yeah.
Right.
But wouldn't that be a great excuse too? Oh, it just slipped right into the vortex, or it would have been a hole in one.
Exactly. That's a great marketing strategy.
So this place is a little kitschier than some, but the reason why I brought it forward is because this has another element to it that some of these other places don't have. Now, I've talked about this place before on the What If Tomorrow on the Fringe podcast, but I thought it was very appropriate for this one because we're all about aliens and stuff too. The reason why this sign says Watertown's Area 51 is because this little town has kind of a nod to Area 51. The CIA's very first head was Alan Dulles, and he lived right across the street from this in the 1950s.
Interesting. Wow.
I like what Enzo said. That'll be a hole in one tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
That's right. Now, if you all had seen the stories that we did on Andrew Basaggio and all of that, and him talking about the government having set up portals throughout the US and other countries to get their scientists back and forth to
Mhm.
Skunk Works and Area 51 and all of these places they were doing research at, this makes sense. Alan Dulles was the head of the CIA in the 1950s. He also had super deep ties to some of the Nazi scientists that were brought over during Operation Paperclip. So we're talking
Why does
about
it
like
always go
Werner
back to
von
Nazi?
Braun.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Like Werner von Braun and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He had his hands like in the development of the US space program and stuff like that. You know, all that Nazi military technology, Nazi
Mhm.
Bell, and all of that other stuff. So a lot of people believe that this really is a portal place. It may have been one that the government gave up on because it wasn't useful anymore because Alan wasn't a part of the program anymore. But perhaps it still bleeps open occasionally.
Maybe it's created a thinner spot, possibly, that
Yeah.
still bleeds through.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the Thompson Park vortex, and you can go visit it. You can see like they put out signs and stuff, but I wouldn't linger too long
Yeah.
in that. Little
No. No. That would be. It's like, here, you hold this piece of the yarn, this wool yarn. I'm gonna go walk it in there, and we'll figure out where I land.
Like on Poltergeist, where they wrap
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
let the kid go into the closet
Mhm.
for the dad, I guess.
Yes.
Fun.
All right.
I threw Ian's comment up there, but I'm gonna read it so it'll get on the audio
Okay.
version only. We were talking about, getting stuck in the portal, and he said we've all had nights like that. I was young in the 90s. Yes, we all were, weren't it?
Yes.
And road trip for Enzo. Heck yeah. Oh, Enzo just said too, Fort Drum is right next to that area, home of the 10th Mountain Division. I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
Yeah. It's
It is fun how they seem to plop some of those down right next to these little weird spots. Or maybe that's what caused the little weird spots. I don't know.
Could be.
All right. So I know that Miss Kristi has had several time slippy, weird time things happen to her. Did you want to talk about any of them?
Sure. I actually, as we were talking about the highway, what was it called? What was the word of the day? My brain just brain fogged.
Highway hypnosis.
Highway hypnosis. So we, when I was 16, we lived in Southern California, and my family liked to go to this ghost town called Goldfield. It was near Nevada. It was in Nevada. And we'd drive up there and just kind of, there's nothing really there in the sense of like, it was just kind of an old abandoned ghost town. And it was just like, when you get there, there was this almost like a pop, like your ears would pop. It's almost like there would be like this feeling of like being watched and stuff. But we go there many times. We went there at least, I would say 20 times in the time that we would go up that way. And this one time, it was the end of summer. It was, I think, around like mid-July, early August. And we drove up there earlier in the morning because we would take that route to go visit family and things like that. So it was a nice picnic spot to stop. And I felt really uneasy about going there. And I always loved the Goldfield Hotel. If you guys ever get a chance, it did get demolished, unfortunately, but there's a lot of history there, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of stories about the daughter of the owner getting pregnant and him chaining her to the radiator and her passing away with the baby in the. So it's really tragic, but there's also a lot of interesting aspects of that as well. Well, we stopped for lunch, and it was around 12:30 in the afternoon, and we were supposed to get to our family's house around 3 p.m. And we left and started driving away, and we wouldn't have gotten more than say, like a half hour past Goldfield, and we saw, and this was like a straight shot on the highway, and so we saw the sign for Goldfield, and we're like, how do we go back? And so we actually got there around, and like the car had said like 2:30 or like 1:35, something like that, and we thought we were like halfway to the town that our family lived in. And when we looked again, it was 12 o'clock. And we were like, okay, our lunch has been eaten. Like, this is really weird. And so it only happened once. And so we kind of pulled in. We're like, this is strange. And it was almost like we got in this loop, and that it kind of pulled us back. And this time there wasn't that like popping feeling in the ears, like there's something going on. It was just very quiet. And so we just kind of proceeded to, there's a little gas station there. So we used the restroom because we had been driving for 2 hours. So we had to go. So we used the restroom, and my mom casually said, we were just here. And the guy's like, yeah, I saw your car earlier, and I wondered why you came back. And he's like, but it happens all the time. It's just, people just get drawn back, and there's some sort of magnetic pull that does this. That's how I got stuck here. It's because they just kept bringing me back. And so we left, and we actually made it to the family's house around like 6 o'clock. And driving back, we decided to go a different way. And we went back a couple of months later, but it never happened again like that. It was very strange.
That is odd. And the way he worded that,
Mm-hmm.
I keep getting pulled back.
Yeah.
That's
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really unique town. It's very run down, but the buildings were so interesting. It was a mining town, and it was really fascinating because we had to be really careful though, like in the summer if we were going down that way, because there's a lot of snakes and a lot of, there was probably about like 15 people that lived in the town that were just like caretakers of the town.
Oh wow.
But
That's
it was Goldfield, Nevada is the name of the place, and I was enchanted by it. I actually at one time had wanted to buy the hotel because I felt so connected to it. And I feel as if I had a past life where I either lived in the hotel, or so I felt very, very drawn to it. And somebody had bought it after the fact and lived in it and wrote a book about it and her paranormal experiences with that, and then sold it, and it got torn down because it was old. It was very, very, it was like I think it was built in like the 1880s, so
time, basically.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah.
had to put the name of it in the chat. So
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was kind of an interesting one that just kind of how you're like, oh, this memory pops up, and you're like, okay, you gotta pull that one out from the past,
Yeah.
But I had something recent happen as well, and so with time slips, sometimes I pay attention to numbers like 1111 or 12, things that kind of are correlating, as I utilize those for like messages, like angel numbers, things like that. Well, it was about 4 nights ago, and it was around 10 o'clock at night, and I was really tired. I'd been working a lot that day, and I went to sleep. I was just so sleepy, and so I usually wake up around like 1 or 2 to run to the restroom, that kind of thing. And I woke up, and it was like 10:20, and it was strange because my body felt like I'd slept forever, and Desiree was still awake, and it was just like, it was very strange. So I went back to sleep again, and I woke up, and it was 10:30, and it wasn't like I felt like I slept for 10 minutes. When I pass out hard. And so finally I stayed up for a little bit, and then around 2:30 in the morning, like, okay, I'm going back to sleep. And I finally slept the whole night. But it was almost like I was so full of the rested energy. And it's happened a couple of times where I'm like, or when we first moved into this house, I had a client call at 7 p.m. one night, and we were sitting here just chit-chatting, and I looked at my phone and it said 6:58. So I called my client, and she said, well, it's 8:00. You're an hour late. And I said, no, it's 6:58. And I looked at my phone and it said that it was 8:00.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this is really weird. So things like that tend to happen often. So I've got to be really mindful of, like, okay, checking that we're going to be, talking in an hour, because they're like, it's time to, so, but there's a lot of really, really cool experiences that I've had with that. So,
You know what's interesting? I know, let me rephrase that. You know what's thought provoking? Is the fact, yay, I did it. Is we talk a lot about keeping time as we're in an investigation or as we're researching or whatever, and we talk about the things we probably would have missed had Jess not kept the time the way that she does. And it really makes you wonder, if you kept time all day long, how many of those little anomalies you would actually catch, And you probably don't want to know, honestly.
Probably not.
Your entire perception of everything off, which we know, time's just a construct anyway, but we are stuck to that construct. So to mess with that would really mess with everybody's head.
Yeah.
Well, I know I was just going to say really quick. So I know that the day-to-day thing happens just because I've told people before about my 11:11 stuff. I see it daily, but it really ramps up when I'm on the right path, when I'm researching something or investigating something, or I'm like coming to terms with a new idea. If it's in the right direction, I see this 11:11 all the time. And I was really deep on some research. It's been a couple of years ago, but I'd actually laid down for a nap because I was so tired. And right before I fell asleep, I looked at my clock and it said 11:11. And I was like, well, yeah, okay. Here we go again. And I sat there and stared at it. I was waiting for it to flip to 11:12. And it didn't do it. And it didn't do it. And I started counting in the seconds in my head. I was like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And I just kept going, and it wouldn't turn, and it wouldn't turn. So I decided to like close my eyes, because I thought, I'll close my eyes, and when I open them, it'll have switched, because it's just me waiting for this to happen. And I closed my eyes really tight, and and like counted to 10 and opened my eyes back up, and it was still 11:11.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And
I ended up falling asleep with it being 11:11. Now,
it was self-defense.
I know it went on longer than it should have, because I literally counted the seconds out there. It had to have turned eventually, and it didn't. Of course, it wasn't 11:11 when I woke up, thank goodness, because then I would have been calling Pam and been like, oh my God. Yeah,
absolutely.
We, at one point, Jess was like, you know what we should do is, because the number that I always see is 444. And she was like, we should keep track. Every time we see 11:11 in her case, or 444 in my case, write it down, and put maybe what's happening at the time. And both of us got weirded out, because when we started really keeping track of it and, putting what was happening around that time, it was way too often to be. It was too freaky. And I know I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to, I don't like this. I'm not going to do this for a while. And then, you know,
Mhm.
the next time we talked, I was like, hey, yeah, I kind of stopped doing that. She's like, yeah, so did I.
Yeah, absolutely. I do too. I'm just like, okay, it's too
I
much
still have it. I
synchronicity.
just I have an iPhone, so you know you have notes. So I would just
Mhm.
write it down, and then whatever I was doing, or you know, if it popped up on something, I would screenshot it and save it in that note. And it got so big so quick. I was just like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no.
I have kind of a creepy story. You guys haven't heard this one before because it's like I was trying to think about things with time slips. And so when I was a little girl, I used to stay the night at my great grandma's house.
Mhm.
My great grandma was very into everything that I'm into. And she was just a cool lady. So there's a church down the street from her house. And so again, I tend to get up in the middle of the night to run to the restroom. And she was up, sipping her tea and watching her shows or whatnot. It was probably like around almost midnight. And so she said, we need to get you to bed. And I said, okay. And she's like, you don't want to, we need to get you to bed before the witching hour, so to speak. And so I said, okay. So I remember going to sleep about 11:45 because she had her little analog clock. And then at 3 a.m., I remember, and this happened nightly, I found out, but it happened every time I was there. Every night at 3 a.m., the church's clock would sound 3 bongs on the clock.
Mhm.
And then 5 seconds later, it would do 3 more. And then 5 seconds later, it would do 3 more. And it would stop. And it was just very strange. The church and the other neighbors swore that wasn't the case. They only had heard 3. And like my great grandma and I were just like, there's 9. There's 9 of them. So it was just kind of odd. And then finally, one of the other neighbors said, "No, I hear 9 as well." So I don't know if it's like a paradigm shift, or if it was just, yeah, it was really odd. A couple of years, it was probably about like 9 or 10 when the church bell broke, but it was, yeah, her area was very eerie for sure.
Weird.
That is
Hmm.
weird.
Yeah, I gotta love California. Hmm.
Funny. My
And then you guys have heard this one. This is about my bestie and Desi. So I was babysitting for a friend of mine, and she was at work. She was a nurse, and I was taking care of her 2 kids. And Desi and I were getting hungry, and it was about noonish. And I said, "Hey, why don't you go and grab some food at the diner down the street?" This was in, yeah, I think it was in Nowata. I think it was. Or was it Coffeeville? And so it was in Nowata, Oklahoma. So we went to, send her on her way, gave her some money, and I put the kids down for nap. They already had their lunch, and so I was sitting there like, I'm getting so hungry. And back then we had the brick. This was about like 17 years ago. So we had those big old brick Nokias, nothing fancy. Hmm. And so I tried calling her and it didn't go through. And then the kids woke up. I got busy again. I'm like, well, maybe she just went home. Maybe she got tired. I don't know. I'm hungry, but so the girl that I watched her kids for came home, and I said, we need to go and just make sure Desi's okay. And so we were headed. She needed to go get something at the store. It was across the train tracks, and so and then we were going to go to my house, which is down the way from hers. Well, the diner was across the train tracks, like on our side of the train tracks, and then the gas station was on the other down the way. So it was the depot. That's what or I believe that's what it's called.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
The restaurant. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's annoying.
yeah. So we went down the way, and Desiree was walking back and forth on the side of the train tracks, and she was on the other side of the tracks, like where the gas station area, the Dollar Tree would be, and she had the food, but she was confused. And when I stopped her, I mean, the food was cold. It was just like she got stuck in like this time loop of trying to get back, but she got confused and walked across the train tracks, which she never would do. So it was just very strange. And we finally got our food. It was very cold, but she was just like, I don't know how the heck I got here. And it was like 2:30 in the afternoon. So you figure she was lost for like 2.5 hours.
So weird.
Very strange.
Surely
But
you would think somebody would have noticed, if she was walking right there for that long, someone would have.
yeah, I don't know. And it was just kind of like she was walking the length of where you would cross, like kind of like not on the train tracks, but like back and forth alongside the train tracks. And it was a hot day, and she wasn't really sweating, which was really weird because she, she'd be
If she would
sweating.
have been outside in the heat that long, she definitely would have been.
So that was really strange.
Sunburned and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, that is strange.
Millwood is an odd little town anyway. It
yes.
has a lot of weird things happen in it too.
It really does. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I pulled up. So while Kristi was telling us about her crazy experiences, I'm so glad that we're not the only one. The only ones who goes through this, right? I went ahead and pulled up my research on the Beaver Sands portal.
Oh, great.
Right? It's very much time slippy, missing, almost like a missing 411. Yeah, exactly.
I gotta get my Dr. Who reference in.
For anyone listening who doesn't know, so there are actually sand dunes in the panhandle of Oklahoma. Oklahoma is one of the weirdest states. They have like 1,001 different types of terrain.
Yeah,
they have like mountainous areas. They have desert areas. They've got sand dunes. They've got
swamps.
Swamps, yeah, deeply forested areas. But the Beaver Sands portal, so it's also called the Shaman's Portal. It's right in the panhandle of Oklahoma, and it's completely comprised of sand dunes. And the weird thing about it is if you look at it from a map up above, it's literally just like somebody scooped up a part of like the Sahara Desert and scooted it over and just dropped it in the panhandle.
Oh my gosh.
It's the weirdest little thing. Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's super popular. People love to go out there and go camping. It's a spot where like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts like to go. You can go hike through it. Blah, blah, blah. But it actually is known for its really odd disappearances. So apparently they've been happening there since the time of Coronado and before. Reportedly, the Native Americans knew of this mysterious force that was there and warned Coronado when he came through to not venture there at all. Of course, he didn't listen because then that would ruin the whole story. So him and his men made camp, and they sent 3 men out past the dunes to go hunting, but they did not return. The only thing witnessed that night were these flashes of green light. Now, I'm bringing this up because we talked about that flash of light that they took the photo of over Hayobachi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a gentleman by the name of Juan Padilla was traveling with Coronado, and he was kind of like journaling their experiences. And this was actually written in the journal, this experience that happened with these 3 men going missing with these 3 flashes of light. And he wrote in his journal that he felt that the devil had taken the men in a green lightning bolt.
Ooh.
Right? So this is the first written down story that we have of it, but there's more. So in 1894, a young woman named Nancy Wright went missing. She walked across the dunes but never came back. And the only thing that was reported the night that that happened were these flashes of green light.
Interesting.
Yeah. In 19... Do what, Pam?
I said thought-provoking. I said interesting.
So in 1977, a gentleman by the name of Bill Groendyke was reported missing. His car and campsite were found abandoned at the dunes. There were no clues in his disappearance, but nearby residents had reported green flashes days before they found his empty campsite. It's as if he just kind of walked away and just was gone.
That's wild.
In 1997, a Kansas boy disappeared while camping with friends there at the dunes. And a Texas woman camping nearby to their little camp witnessed green flashes the same night that the boy had gone missing. Now, so the interesting thing about this story is I always say, Pam and I like to take it a step further and kind of backtrack on that research and see if there was any validity to it whatsoever. And this one I was a little leery of because it started with like almost a legend, like the Coronado story. I'm always hesitant when they start with a legend, and then like, because it's really easy to throw some fake names and dates on top of that. So I backtracked. And while I couldn't find any information on the Nancy woman or the Bill guy, I did, however, find information on a Kansas boy who went missing in 1997. I actually went to the Kansas missing pages, and there was one boy that went missing out of Kansas that year. And he had gone missing when he went down into Oklahoma to visit his cousin and went camping with him in the dunes. And he was reported missing and they never found him. So I at least know that the Kansas boy story is absolutely true. So I can imagine that the ones previous to that must have at least a little bit of truth to them.
Yeah, there normally is. Even in lore, there's a little grain of truth somewhere.
That's very interesting.
So it is.
Yeah.
Enzo said he's driven through that area a few times and always felt compelled to get through that area as quickly as possible for some reason. But you may, your spidey senses were going off, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, that whole Panhandle area is just strange. I've been through that area too, not through the dunes, but through the Panhandle. And it really is kind of a no man's land. There's very few little towns. It's more like little spots along the highway where people have popped up a restaurant here or there or a gas station. It's very
liminal.
Desolate. Yeah, it's very liminal. It's very like nobody really kind of ever stays here for very long. So I don't know.
Or if they do, they're very close knit and they stick to themselves and just kind of
yeah.
Ian said it would be intriguing. Yay, I like that word.
Yeah.
To hear about the geology of the area. There's a really interesting book by British author Paul Devereaux, called Earthlights. Makes a connection with stone circles, UFOs, etc. That is true. I have at least one, maybe two Paul Devereaux books. He's got some interesting stuff out there. Yeah, and geology. If I remember correctly, our friend Brian Terrell, he is he's really into cryptozoology, and he was out in that area with someone, and they hiked up to show some what are they called? The pictures on the rocks.
Oh, the petroglyphs?
Thank you.
It
was a petroglyphs. They climbed up way above the river valley to look at them. And there's some really fascinating ones. And if I recall correctly, there's one area that has some petroglyphs that align with the seasons.
That I don't know why my spidey senses. I know that they're with the sand and everything else, like the sand dunes. What if it could be? I mean, just speculation, but like elemental sacrifice kind of thing. Because I've read a lot about that in the past, where there's just I don't know.
And
I don't know.
if you think about what type of elemental spirit, whatever you want to call it, lives in the desert, gemstones
Yeah.
live there
Yeah.
for sure.
Hmm.
Do you
Well,
know
the
what else is in the
petroglyphs.
Panhandle?
What?
The
Bigfoot.
Anubis caves.
Oh.
That's what I was.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I didn't have the
Yeah.
name of it though. The Anubis. That's where the solstice matches up. Is the
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. That's what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enzo said, I feel geology is a prime component for all of these strange areas. Yeah.
Mhm.
I could probably look it up right now. Let me go see. I'll see what it's comprised of.
Yeah. That would be interesting to find out. It would be compelling to learn.
Yeah.
I'm gonna break myself of that word if it kills me.
Indubitably.
I don't realize how much I say it until I've listened back to a podcast and I'm like cringe after I say it the 20th time.
I have different patterns like that too.
All right,
Yeah.
I got it. Okay, so it says sand in the Little Sahara Dunes, another name for it, is largely worked from terrace deposits left by the Cimarron River when it flowed across the area earlier during the Pleistocene times. In addition, some of the sand is blown from the floodplain deposits of the present river. Prevailing winds are from the south and southwest. So it's just sand deposits
Mhm.
from the river.
Yeah, but with the energy of the river.
Stuff, it's got a lot, and like Enzo said, he's guessing it's got a lot of quartz in it. Yep.
Oh, probably so. Yeah.
Right, for sure.
Well, and from the old river.
Ian said, like, earthquake lights, geology, fault lines, etc. Yes. So,
Well, if it was an old river too, the current could still be moving, and that could be what is reflecting or something. But that's. I don't think I'd want to go there by myself for sure.
Probably not. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's actually a weird little strip. You can see it's where a river probably used to run through. I'm going to show a little picture.
Oh, yeah.
That pink spot in the middle, that is the strip right where the dunes are. It's where an old river used to run through it. So that makes sense. So, like, we know that rivers have, even dead rivers, have an undercurrent to them still underneath that still should have the energy running through it, and maybe it still has water running underneath of it. Maybe it's not a dead river. Maybe it's still got it's under
below ground.
Yeah.
Could be.
So maybe the energy builds up, and that's the green light you see when it releases.
Yeah.
Because we've run across that in more than one thing. We talked a lot about that with the Sally House, about how we feel, and once we really sat down and looked at all of our investigation and everything that went along with that, it was like, there was a buildup of energy, build, and then just a huge release.
Right.
Once that happened, it's like everything in the house, all the activity stopped, So that really makes sense. And with some of the missing 911 or missing 411s, there has been seen flashes of lights and things like that too. So,
yeah,
interesting. Said it again.
Mm-hmm.
Captivating.
Captivating,
compelling, enthralling. We can come up with some other word.
Definitely.
I have to make myself a list.
You should just be like, wowzers.
Wowzers. My flabbers are gasted.
Gosh.
Your flabbers are gasted.
Holy moly.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh my
What
goodness.
is Scooby Gang?
Jinkies. Jinkies. I was thinking that, yeah.
Jinkies.
Well, while we're talking about the time anomalies and things like that, we can also slip a couple of vanishing people stories in there too, where there's actually witnesses to it. And I ran across a couple that I had never heard of. And this particular one is from, I got to put this up. Enzo said leaping lizards. Heck yeah.
Leaping lizards. I love that from Annie. Yes, love it.
That's a good one. This is from the book Among the Missing, An Anecdotal History of Missing Persons from 1800 to Present. And it's by J. Robert Nash. And they call this one The Vanishing Prisoner. And it's really, really a cool one because the fact that it had witnesses, it really defies any rational explanation, because of the witnesses. So the year was 1815, and the location was a Prussian prison. And I'm going to completely butcher these names, so bear with me. Weichselmund, and the prisoner's name was Diederici. He was a valet who was serving a sentence for assuming his employer's identity after he died from a stroke. And it was an ordinary afternoon, and the prisoner was just one in a long line of other prisoners. And they were all chained together, and they were walking the prison yard for the day's exercise. And as Diederici walked with his prison inmates, and you got the clanking of the shackles as they move, he slowly began to fade, like literally began to fade in front of their eyes. And his body became more and more transparent until he disappeared altogether, and the manacles and the leg irons fell empty to the ground. So he disappeared into complete thin air, never seen
My
again.
goodness.
How freaky would that be, especially if you're like chained to the dude that just disappeared?
You're like, am I next?
I'd be like, I'd be like, I hope I'm not next.
Yeah. I'd be like, thankfully the iron stayed, But again, there's the iron that stayed. So what do we know that is a detractant to iron is the Fae.
100%. Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be interesting though to
definitely.
But that was back in 1815. And then there was another one here. This one's from 1873. And this one started as a harmless bet among friends, but it ended in what they called a tragic mystery. James Warson of Leamington Spa, England. He was what they called they described him as a simple shoemaker who also fancied himself as something of an athlete. So one day he'd made a bet with a few of his friends that he could run nonstop from Leamington Spa to Coventry. And his buddies knew that it was a good 16 miles. So they were like, heck yeah, we'll take that bet. So as James began to jog, he was doing a moderate pace towards Coventry. His friends climbed into a horse-drawn cart to follow him and to protect their bet, basically, to make sure he didn't cheat. And he did well for the first few miles. And then his friends watched him. They saw him trip on something, and he fell forward, but he never hit the ground. As he fell forward, he vanished completely. And so, they were astonished. They looked at their own eyes. So they looked and looked and looked for him and could not find him. So they turned around, raced back to Leamington Spa to inform the police. And an investigation turned up nothing. And he had basically what they worded it as he ran into oblivion. He was never seen again.
I kind of like that.
I thought that was really well. And that one kind of reminds me of Indian running. Referred to the first part of this series, where Native Americans were taught by shamans to run and to basically take messages between tribes or whatever, and it's kind of like what they did in Greece, where they had the runners in between towns and things, because that was the way they got messages back and forth quickly. But they learned to get almost into this mental state where they could slip into another dimension and just fly and, get there before. In one case that we talked about, the man arrived before he should have left to begin with.
Wow.
Those are pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Ian's actually in England, and he said, to be fair, no one really wants to get to Coventry. Awesome.
Did you see what Enzo said right after that?
I'll jump into another dimension before I go to Coventry. That's awesome.
Oh, poor Coventry.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't mind getting lost in
also-
Glastonbury.
Enzo was also on the Iron Manacles too.
Yeah,
So
rolling out the Fae interference. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
yeah. So before we move on to Kristi and the Paracon and stuff,
Hmm.
I was gonna finish this out if it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
In
Yeah.
honor of Enzo, because he loves the conquistador stories out of Oklahoma so much, I went and pulled up all my original research on it. So you guys can finally hear all these
Lovely.
stories, right?
Great.
Mhm.
Yay.
So just to refresh everybody, there have been multiple Spanish conquistador sightings in Oklahoma in time slip kind of scenarios. They pop up in people's living rooms. They ride out in front of their cars, usually in full regalia and horses and everything else. And for years, I was recording these stories. And I couldn't figure out why the heck there were Spanish conquistadors popping up in Oklahoma so much. Really, history didn't lean towards it too much. Supposedly, they didn't even come really far enough into the Oklahoma area back when they were rooting around for gold.
Mhm.
So it didn't really make sense, but a couple of years ago, we were doing a story for On the Fringe, and I can't remember what it was, what the topic was, but I found out a story out of Canute, Oklahoma, that these kids for years had been talking about. Just outside this little town, there were all of these ruins that they would tell their parents about, and their parents thought they were ridiculous. Like, there's nothing out there to see; it's just woods. And they're like, no, there's stone bases, and there's tunnels and all this other stuff, and nobody really believed them until one dude was out hunting on his own and fell down a shaft
Oh my goodness.
where he found old tools and stuff like that. And he went and got a friend, and they started rooting around, and before you know it, they had archaeologists out there and found a lost Spanish city, and they had been mining for gold in the middle of Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yep. I remember
That's
that.
amazing.
Right? So the Spanish conquistador sightings that I have date from 1978, 1983, 84, 89, 1996, 2005, and 2015 is the latest. So, and I will remind everyone that there's probably 10 times more than this, because how often do people report something?
Absolutely.
And enough that it gets like recorded in some way. So
True.
they have to be extraordinarily prevalent. So I pulled up my old information, and I'm going to read some of these to you so you can hear some of these weird coincidences with these like Spanish conquistadors just kind of popping up into places. So let's see here. What did I pull up here? Durant, Oklahoma, the last one, the 2015 one. It happened in mid-December of that year. A Spanish conquistador on a horse ran out in front of this woman's car and stood there for over a minute and just stared her down.
Wow.
And
That's
then
amazing.
he just kind of just faded out and vanished. Could you imagine just like driving along and having to slam on your brakes because there was like a Spanish conquistador on a horse in full regalia standing in the middle of the road?
I could not
I'd been
imagine.
like, is there a Ren fair going on or something that I don't know about, and he escaped?
Can I have a coin from your pocket, kind sir? I'd like to be a millionaire.
The one in 2005 happened just outside of Marietta, Oklahoma. This
Mhm.
one actually talked about having the Oz effect with it. They had a moment where it felt very strange. Everything went very, very quiet, and they said it was as if time had slowed down. And they saw an old conquistador, a very old one, walk out of the woods in full regalia and disappeared.
That would be amazing to see. Scary, but amazing.
Scary.
And Marietta's a small town too, so they're probably like, "What the heck?" Yeah.
1996. This one was seen in Yukon, Oklahoma.
Mhm.
This was a gentleman, and he witnessed a man dressed as a full conquistador, and he also mentioned having the Oz effect. And this happened just outside of his garage. He was in his garage working on his car,
Can
and
you
he felt like
imagine?
he was being watched. And he like leaned past the hood, and standing outside of his garage door on his driveway was a fully dressed Spanish conquistador that just
It's like,
kind of made it out.
he'd be
I
like, "Did
wonder
I
what the
bump my head?"
conquistadors saw. I wonder if he saw him and was like, "What?" Could you imagine if you would be back in that age and saw a car and a man in weird clothes? And how would you describe that?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Plus, it's coming along with the Oz effect, so
which is very interesting in its own.
like there's a switch being flipped or something.
Yes.
Something
Mhm.
is happening. This the one from 1989 is my favorite. It's the most interesting one I've ever heard. This one also comes with the Oz effect, and it happened in Cordell, Oklahoma. This was to a woman. She was standing in her living room, and she got the Oz effect. She said it felt like everything slowed down, everything got extraordinarily quiet, and she felt like she was being watched. And right in front of her, this Spanish conquistador on a horse popped up in her living room. Now, she said the horse didn't have lower legs, which makes sense because it was probably standing on the ground and her house was probably up.
Built up a little bit, yeah.
Mhm.
And the conquistador's head was partially chopped off by her ceiling. Right? Makes sense. It makes sense. But the very interesting thing about hers is that he was only there for a few seconds. It scared her. He disappeared. And she realized that all of the clocks in her house were flashing 12. She had to reset all of her clocks. Yeah. And she did say that she didn't lose power at any time. It's not as if the lights went off and it flipped the clocks off.
Mhm.
It just distorted time to where she had to fix it.
Yeah. Right? So let me go find 84.
You know, while you're looking for that,
Yeah.
the conquistador just showing up, that made me think we had a case relatively close. It was just outside of town in Caney, and the wife had been laying on her couch and just looked over and watched a Native American man stroll through her living room, but he made eye contact with her and he nodded his head to
Ooh.
acknowledge her. And so she was like, I acknowledged back. And then he just kept right on trucking through the wall and disappeared. And she was like,
That's awesome.
But where they live, it was a very well-known camp. There's been a lot of things found in the area that did show that it was a well-known camp in the area.
I have a funny short story too. You want to go first, Jess?
No, you go ahead.
So when I moved to Tulsa, I lived at these apartments. They were off of Memorial, and they were kind of a bougier apartment complex of sorts. They were like, they didn't have a swimming pool. They had a fountain you could swim in. It was weird. Anyway, we had these personal balconies. So I had one and Desi had one. And so I would go out there and I would smoke, or I'd drink my coffee in the mornings or whatnot. And at night, I would always hear horse hooves, and off to the side was a basketball court. I'm like, well, maybe it's like maybe it's the basketball. Well, I was standing outside one night and smoking a cigarette, and I heard something moving close, and I am always hyper vigilant because I can't see very well. And I saw it was probably about 7 o'clock, and it was early fall, but not quite before daylight saving, so it was still kind of light out. And I saw the outline of a hat, a cowboy hat, and I saw a horse. It was a brown horse, and the man, I couldn't make out anything to do with the man, but I saw him move his hand up, touch his hat, and then he kept going. I'm like,
He tipped his hat to you, didn't he?
he did. And I'm like, that's
Wow.
cool. And I saw him on occasions, but it wasn't like, I think I saw him about 3 times through the whole year that we lived there, and it was just random.
Mhm.
There was him, and then there's a guy with the leather jacket that looked kind of like Jimi Hendrix, which was kind of cool. So but that's my little Oklahoma cowboy story. You know,
Wow.
So, I mean, if he acknowledged you, then it wasn't like a repetitive,
exactly.
like recorded thing that happens,
And
like
I-
stone recording.
Yeah, and I heard the horse's hooves as because it was on grass, but I could hear the kind of the moving of it. Almost sounded like it was on like cobblestone, but it wasn't. It was on grass, but it was very interesting. So
That's cool.
yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that is neat.
Mhm.
Cool. All right.
Mhm.
So, okay, I found the other 3 real quick.
Mhm.
In 1984, this one happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Whoop, whoop.
This conquistador popped up for a lady who was waiting at a bus stop.
Oh,
Oh gosh, need
He
a ride,
popped
lady?
up outside. I guess so.
at least that's all it was that popped up while she was waiting on the bus stop.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, that one was very short. He popped in, he popped out. Long enough for her to recognize what he was. It didn't say anything
Conquistador
about
Uber.
the Oz effect or anything. Yeah. 1983. It happened in Jennings, Oklahoma. One appeared and disappeared in front of a motorcyclist on the road.
Oh.
Yeah, there wasn't much
Interesting.
more information of that one. And then the last one, or the very first one that I found, well, it wasn't the first one I found, but the first one that dates back the furthest to 1978, happened outside of Wyandotte, Oklahoma.
Mhm.
He actually was out hunting and saw a conquistador ride across the river on his horse, like wading through the.
Yeah.
That would be kind of
and
spooky.
just kind of disappeared halfway out in the water. So that's my
Like, I don't think I'm
conquistador
gonna hunt here.
sightings.
Huh.
I'm still
Awesome.
always on the lookout. So if anybody at home has ever heard of a conquistador sighting, even if it's not in Oklahoma, let me know, because I think they're just super interesting. And why
Absolutely.
it pertains to this one particular, just the conquistadors. There was, different groups of people that moved through Oklahoma at different times. So why is
Right.
it just the conquistadors? I don't know.
What is it
Fascinating.
about
Yeah.
make them show up? Huh.
So there you go, Enzo. There's the stories.
He said,
Yay.
so bizarre. Thanks for the recapping those, Jess. Good grief. Thanks for recapping
Absolutely.
those, Jess. Bizarre. There's another word for us. Instead of
Mhm.
interesting.
Very bizarre.
Indeed.
All right. So where do we want to be done now with that and move to Kristi and the Paracon, or what do we want to do?
Man, let me see. I think I have just a couple more. Are you guys good with me
Okay,
reading
go
them?
for it.
Sure.
Yeah, go
Absolutely.
for it.
This one is from the Into the Thin Air by Paul Begg. And this one he titled Halfway to the Well. So this particular one did not have witnesses. However, it was also the circumstances that you'll see here in a second to make you realize that that wasn't quite so important, that there were no witnesses. This is a case of a 16-year-old. His name was Charles Ashmore, and he disappeared. It was a cold November night in 1878. He went out to the well with a bucket to get some water. And this was in Quincy, Illinois, but he never came back. So after a lengthy amount of time, his father and his sister, they became very concerned, and they feared that maybe he had slipped in the snow, because there was quite a bit of snow, and that he injured himself, or, even worse, he potentially fell into the well. So they went out to look for him, but he was gone. There wasn't any sign of a struggle or a fall that they could see. And the only clear tracks that they could see were Charles's footprints in the fresh snow that led halfway to the well. And then they just abruptly stopped. There was no, like he fought anything. They just stopped. And we hear that sometimes with like big footprints and stuff like that, where they go out to the middle of the field and then that's it,
Yeah.
Footprints go. It's like he just suddenly disappeared into the void. So maybe he got caught in a rando, swath that came through. Well,
Definitely. Yeah, that's a good question. If you get stuck in one of those, if you don't come back to the same point, like, where do you go? Do you go that's a interesting thought.
It is. And then, and it makes you think of like the Green Children, where they heard a bell or something, and they were tending sheep, and so they followed the sound of music or whatever it was into the cave, and when they came out, it was into where we are, into this little mountain community, and neither one of them could speak the language, and they were both green, and their skin was green, and for the longest time, well, I take that back. The girl lived, and she grew up, she learned the language, and she married one of the locals, so she was able to kind of tell a little bit about where they came from. But the boy that was with her, he did not last very long, and he died.
He wouldn't eat the food, right? Wasn't it kind of like they didn't? Yeah.
And once she ate the food, she lost the green tint to her skin too. So it probably had a lot to do with what they were eating. Yeah, it makes me think of that, because I'm sure they just vanished in their world and were never found again. So
yeah,
tinkling bells make me think of the Fae.
I know,
like,
coming back to
follow me into a world. Let
me lure you over this way.
The Green Children of Woolpit.
Yes, Woolpit. That's it.
Yeah.
And then I have another one. It's called, they titled it Gone in His Sleep. This is about a gentleman named Kristi Campbell. And he was asleep next to his wife when he disappeared.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She was asleep. And so it's speculated that perhaps he was asleep as well. So he may have woke up somewhere completely different. This was April 14th, 1959. So it was relatively recent when you look at some of these. And he was traveling with his wife from their hometown in Massachusetts to visit their son. And he lived quite a ways across the country. And they, made quite a few stops along the way. And one of their overnight stops was in Jacksonville, Illinois. And they checked into a motel and they went to bed. And in the morning, when Mrs. Campbell woke up, he was gone completely. And his pajamas were gone as well, but everything else, his money, his car, his clothes, everything else was there. But he was never, ever seen again, and no explanation for his disappearance has ever been found. So
that is spooky.
That is spooky for somebody just to disappear like that.
Could you imagine just like, okay, good night, and then just that's a bit terrifying for sure.
Enzo said, isn't there a metal door slamming sound associated with Bigfoot and Dogman sightings? Yeah, sometimes there is.
Yes.
There is.
Along
with baby crying sounds.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
And sometimes the sounds have kind of morphed as the years have gone by. Sometimes it's more of like a car door sound that is heard now. And it may just be the fact of there's a better we have a more reference, for what it sounds
Yeah.
closer to than what it was in the past.
Indeed.
But I have a couple others. We can skip them though, because we're starting to. It's already 8:35.
Yeah, I have books of them, so
Yeah.
if we could just keep going and going.
Wow.
Part 4.
It's such an interesting and just mystical kind of.
And prolific. I mean, there's story
Yes.
after story
Truly.
after story.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You said Big Feets are driving now? Maybe.
Apparently.
Maybe they have Wonder Woman has the transparent helicopter. Maybe they have something like that. Jump in and.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, let's move away from time weirdness. That, like I said, we could probably just do a show on that. Like that would be the
True.
whole show. Yeah,
Definitely.
like years and years and years of just those stories and like breaking it down and how does it work and what's happening, and you can bring in the scientific part of it. It is, oh my goodness. Maybe one day we'll hit it again from like a different
We
angle.
will have to, because this is one that we can always circle back to, because there is so much information out there.
Definitely.
All right, so let's move on. We've got our guest here today. We got Kristi Campbell with us.
Hey.
She's a really good friend of ours. We hope that she likes to keep us around a little bit. We like her.
Love you guys. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this year we've got the Paracon coming up, of course, and this year she has agreed to be a presenter. Yay, we're super excited.
Yes.
She's going to do a presentation on what it was like growing up a psychic medium, and some other things for us. And of course, she will still be out in the main hall in between panels and stuff, doing readings for people. It's going to be ever so much fun. So, would you tell us, Kristi, just a little bit about kind of what it is you're going to be talking about to kind of get everyone excited about it?
Absolutely. So I'm going to be discussing what it was like to grow up in a world that wasn't quite as accepting of the paranormal and the psychic in the 70s and 80s, and how my visual impairment has allowed me to kind of open up and seek my intuition, because I was born with visual impairment. So I kind of received a different kind of sight with it. And so trying to grow up in some anecdotes about school and, seeing spirits and getting in trouble like I always did. And, then getting to a place where as an adult, I saw it as a gift and not so much a curse, and moving into the paranormal side of things and joining a team and utilizing my skills as a medium to close doors in that aspect of, instead of just recording spirits but communicating with them and allowing them to, cross over and to give the homeowner or the space peace, or to just kind of give it a voice and help people understand what they have in their space if the spirit didn't want to go, because some of them like to stick around.
Yeah, we are super excited to have Kristi presenting.
I'm excited too.
Well, everything you always have something very interesting, like an interesting twist on everything. So I think everybody's going to really enjoy it. And then she's going to do a 30-minute presentation, and then she's going to do an extra 30 minutes for us. And it's something I'm really excited about for this year. I think people are going to be. Do you want to tell them what you're going to be doing?
Sure. So I'm going to be doing floor readings where I pick a person out of the audience, and then I will give them a brief reading if they have questions. I can't see hands raised, so I'll just kind of meander and kind of, pick somebody out of the audience, and then we can do some readings, and that way you can get, if you're a skeptic and you're just like, I want to know this question, then I'm happy to do it, and to bring forth your loved ones and to give messages to you, not only in a medium sense, but also if you're like, hey, I'm struggling with a job, am I going to find a new job? I'm happy to answer any of those kind of questions within reason.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, she will be available out in the big hall for anybody who wants to have a reading. What are your prices? I've forgotten what the prices are.
So if we're doing 15 minutes, it's $25, and for a half hour, it's $50.
Awesome. And where can they contact you at if they want to go through your actual business?
So you can give me a call. My business number is 918-237-8506. And my website is kindredinsights.com. That's kindredinsights.com. And you can book right on the website.
Awesome. And can you tell them a little bit what different kinds of readings you can do? Because she doesn't just
Absolutely.
do... Yeah.
Sure. So my favorite ones to do, I love them all, but my favorite is doing Akashic records, where you go through and you look at all of your book or your scroll of your Akashic record. And what your Akashic record is basically your life story that you've pre-planned. And so it's something that we could look at, your different lines.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
We
no,
lost Kristi. Oh,
Darn
no.
it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. So while she's missing, well, hopefully we can get her back. So she does the Akashic reading. She also does quantum healing readings, where she can kind of help you with your pains and your aches. She is very good at that. She has called me out on things that I had not told anyone. Got myself into some trouble there. She also does one of my favorites is she does past life readings. She can give you a little insight on maybe a person you used to be, or some very funny things have come out of that, especially for my husband. Every time he gets one of those readings, he ends up being somebody who accidentally offed themselves very early in life, or was very bad at what they were doing, and it ended
What was
early
the one
and
where
poorly.
didn't he like fall off the edge of the boat or something?
Yeah.
Kristi's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay, we got her.
My thumb hit a button.
Oh,
But
no.
it's okay. Yeah, I got fat fingers. But yeah, so your Akashic record basically is where we go through your different, like your love, your business, your finance, your career, your pitfalls, and your blessings, if you will. I do love readings. I do business readings. I do mediumship sessions where I can contact your lost loved ones. I do past life readings, which are a lot of fun. I'm also a Reiki master healer and a quantum diagnostic healer as well, which is a lot of fun and
It is.
very, very helpful to the body.
Very.
Yes.
I'm also an ordained minister as well.
She's got everything in her bag of tricks there. Yeah, while you were gone, I was telling them, about because I really enjoyed like the past life readings. And I thoroughly enjoyed it when you did a couple of them for my husband, because he always seems to get himself into trouble and then ends himself early in some fashion. So
he does, yes.
He kind of gave up. He kind of gave up getting those readings because he was just like, I was pitiful.
Well, every soul is learning.
Or, a king or anything like that.
Yeah. But you know what it takes? It takes all the soldiers and the fishermen and the different people to make the kingdom work. So everybody has a working part.
Enzo said, so if someone wanted to get married at the Paracon, Kristi could handle that?
Absolutely.
She sure can.
Ooh,
absolutely. Yeah.
Is Enzo wanting to get married at the Paracon?
What are you not telling us, Enzo? Is there
Do it, Enzo.
Who's he gonna marry? Who are you seeing?
I
We
see.
need answers, Enzo.
Do you have an animal there, Enzo? You see like Enzo and the cat or the dog.
I was gonna say, like, Kristi, read him really quick and find out what he's not telling us.
He's a man of mystery for sure.
He
But
might disappear on us now.
oh, and I also do pet readings too. Those are fun too. Both
Enzo.
deceased pets and living pets.
He said it's my future ex-wife.
Ooh, I don't know, Enzo.
That's funny. So you do pet readings as well. That's really cool.
I do, yeah. I help find lost animals. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
We have not told you this, Kristi, and this will be something that you're interested in. So you know about my kitty cat, Sweetie.
Yes.
Yes. We have seen her a few times in the house, and Jess actually heard her just recently, within the last few months, behind her in my living room.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She might be stuck in a parallel loop or something.
That's exactly what we think, that she's maybe just one step away from us.
Yeah.
Have you tried putting out cat food and seeing if the smell can bring her back?
When she first disappeared, I did. I haven't done that in a really long time. I may have to try that. I put her, her litter box and everything out on the patio to try to let her, be able to smell her way home, kind of.
Yeah.
There's some poking and prodding there in the chats.
Yeah. That Enzo.
The spirit Enzo, high hopes.
I don't know. I feel like this person is fairly tall for you, Enzo. Come talk to me at Paracon. We'll discuss things. Very Romanesque.
Ooh, excellent.
A little tidbit there for you.
Awesome. But yeah, so come to the Paracon. Kristi will be there.
Yes.
We're hoping here in the next show to get some more of our presenters and stuff on to chit chat and talk about Paracon coming up. It's gonna be an awesome year. I have a feeling that this one is just gonna blow it out of the water.
It is, for sure.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Everyone is it's almost like you guys take it and you're like, this is the area we need to make better. And it's like better and better and better and better and better and better. And it's like, how can they make it better? It's amazing. And it's free to everybody to come. So you should all come.
That's absolutely, everybody needs to come.
Yeah, it's great.
He does like a tall lady. Well, there you go.
My lips are sealed, Enzo.
Uh-oh.
She's seeing more than she's saying. Interesting.
Yep.
I'm not allowed to say anything.
Yeah, you can't tell everything you know.
I mean, if I did, then I wouldn't have anything to
Right.
Yeah.
You can let us know backstage.
You know I will. My loyalty's Enzo, sorry.
That's funny.
Oh no, okay. Let's move.
Kristi did say, we do try to strive to make it a little bit different and fill in some gaps that we may have seen from the year before. So that's what we're trying to do is we strive to make it bigger and better every year. So
yes. I'm also going to be bringing a huge vat of crystals. So you come by, get a reading, you get a free crystal.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Chris said now we will be scoping out every tall lady that comes through the doors.
Okay.
I don't think you're there. You going to Arizona soon, Enzo? Someone to say. Arizona, New Mexico, someplace out that way.
Okay, we gotta quit picking on Enzo. Mean. Although,
we love Enzo.
I think he deserves it sometimes, but that's
okay. Oh yeah.
Let me guess, she has red hair and is from Lovelock, Nevada.
No.
Oh, darn. She just burst your bubble there. Sorry.
Sorry. I mean, maybe, but that seems like a past situation.
Oh.
That's all I'm saying. I don't want to get in trouble with Enzo.
Oh no. Okay, before this gets any worse.
Oh, duh. That went right over my head. He said that's a Giants reference. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
There you go.
I gotcha. Lovelock, Nevada.
Yeah, yeah.
Funny. That
All
is
right.
hilarious.
Okay.
You brought us
So
for
before
that
we
one.
get her in any more trouble, yeah. So make sure you come to Paracon this year, Saturday, September 28th. It's all day. If you go up onto our Facebook page or our website, you can see the full itinerary up there. Come and go as you please. The door prizes are awesome. So
Yeah.
check out our next couple of shows coming up. We're going to be really focusing on Paracon. I'm going to try to make sure that we kind of show the door prizes this year, the ghost hunting UFO and Bigfoot bags and the crystal bags and the tarot bag and oh my goodness. And Kristi is being awesome this year and she's bringing her own little gift basket for us to give away.
That's so
Yes. It's going to have a bunch of goodies in it. And it's also going to have a gift certificate for a free reading in it, too.
Wow.
Woo! Wow.
Yes.
She's
That's very
just doing
generous. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Got to support my people.
Yay.
It's going to be awesome. Like I said, like tune in the next the next couple of shows, and we're really going to be hitting Paracon hard. And like I said, I'm hoping we're going to bring in some of the speakers that are coming in to interview, and it's just going to be all things Paracon. So it'll be
coming up before you know it.
Oh
yes,
my gosh.
We're right there.
Mm-hmm.
Ticking right along towards it for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So do we want to play some notebook game?
Absolutely.
Yay!
Chris said we will have just enough time to watch Kristi's panel before we have to leave. I'm so excited. Yay.
Oh, yay!
Yeah.
Okay, so for everyone at home who's never played the notebook games before, my little moniker, my Jess Notebooks is there. Ooh, wrong way. There we go.
There you go.
I'm always backwards. When I research, everything goes down in notebooks. It's just how I work. I have dozens and dozens of them all over the house. And right before the show, I make sure to grab at least 5 notebooks of varying. They are
Random.
full of rando information. And what we do is you are going to pick a notebook 1 through 5 and a number 1 through 75, the page number. Give me the book, the page number, and I have to read whatever the heck is on it. And I hope it makes sense.
So up some really interesting tidbits too.
Yeah. So in honor of Kristi being our guest tonight, I'm going to let her pick the first one.
Okay, book number 2.
Okay.
Page number 22.
22. Okay.
Yes.
Talk amongst yourselves while I look, because this is a numbered folder.
If you would like, go ahead, anyone in the chat, and put in your book number and page number, and we will go through them as
randomized. Yes. And I'm so sorry. I keep my eyes are like watering because of the light. It's just like woo. It's one of those allergy days. I'm just like just keep rubbing my eyes. I'm like watering.
I went to the eye doctor today and had my eyes dilated, so I've got my other glasses on because these are the ones that I have the magnetic sunglasses for.
Yes.
My eyes earlier, and my pupils were like blown. Man, they were huge.
Oh gosh. That is wild. Oh.
Okay, at least see it again.
Oh, this is the Smithsonian stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Say it together. Boo, Smithsonian.
Yeah. So this is not happy stuff.
Okay. Want me to pick another number?
No.
I'm gonna read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you guys a little precursor to it because it hops right into the middle of a very large section. So this was research that we were doing on the Smithsonian's mishandling of objects, especially the giant skeletons that were being found and other objects. that kind of went against their original mantra they kind of put out when they first started the Smithsonian.
Mm-hmm.
So on this page, it says, then there is the thorny question of racism and manifest destiny, which decoded reads like this: America is inhabited by inferior races of people whom civilized man has a God-given right to exterminate so that he can exploit the country he now considers his domain. One has only to read Powell's 1879 theories about the Aborigines and their inherent lack of intelligence to get an unpleasant whiff of what we are dealing with here. Powell finishes his proof of no European or Asiatic influences by boldly inserting, without a shred of supporting evidence, that all pictographic writing found anywhere in the Americas is evidence of nothing more than the most rudimentary picture making, despite having no working knowledge of any of the ancient writing systems to which he alludes. And then it continues into the next page. So,
what? That's
yes,
horrible.
This was the man that the Smithsonian originally sent out to document the Native Americans, especially in the Grand Canyon area.
Wow. What a jerk.
Yeah. It's just page after page after page of these
Close-minded.
We are not fond of the Smithsonian because they
No.
really crappy individuals that were.
I've been once. I got to see the Hope Diamond, that kind of stuff. That's kind of cool. But it was
I've been there,
but I always felt like this very not so great energy, just this very withheld energy, or like this stuck. So that makes a lot of sense if they were kind of tearing things apart to take things to make them history, but not giving them the credit that they deserve or the credibility.
Well, and a lot of the things that the Smithsonian hid were things that would have shown that Europeans were not the first ones here. They were the ones that should have been able to claim the land, kind of thing.
Like rewriting history. Yeah.
Absolutely. They whitewashed, literally, in this case, whitewashed the history.
Absolutely.
And, that happened way too often in the United States and Canada, North America anyway. And just ugly things like that popped up.
Oh, it's horrible.
All right, let's move on from that. Okay.
Great choice, Kristi.
Hey, it is what it is. It's the truth that was put out there, and it's
absolutely
what some of these things were. What was
done. What do we got? Notebook
2, page 18.
All right.
Okay. Notebook 2, page 18.
Yeah, I've been to the Natural History Museum, which is where the Hope Diamond is, that you've been to, Kristi.
Yeah.
It's cool, but there is a
like a repressed feeling.
Yeah, a lack of things, obviously. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, what is this on?
We talked about the Hope Diamond. I think it might have been in one of our very first episodes of Strange.
When
we talked about
very interesting, and the curse that goes along with it.
Yep. Next episode.
Yeah. So this page is on dragon paths. So dragon paths are the Chinese's way of saying ley lines, basically. That's how far back the thought of ley lines go, is back to dragon paths. So I'm just going to read what it says here. Lung Mei, or the paths of the dragon, are lines of energy discovered by the ancient Chinese from the heart of the dragon is said to be found at a knoll standing in a small valley among the hills. From this center heart, the veins of the dragon current run over the surrounding valleys and hills. Near the dragon's heart, the force is strong and active. This is where the dragon and the tiger, or the male and the female currents, merge harmoniously together. The yang, or male energy of the white tiger, rules sharp rocks, steep mountains, and high ridges, while the yin, or female energy of the blue dragon, rules lower hills and gently rolling countryside. The ancient Chinese believed that these dragon paths were covered the entire earth. In fact, seasonal rituals were performed to mark the running of the dragon current through the earth, with the corresponding astronomical influences happening in the skies. Mounds were used to predict the timing, while standing stones were erected to mark the paths of the dragon. And we know that later on, this was still being used. They were erecting the churches there and the abbeys there and the stone circles and, all of that. Did we lose? We lost her.
We lost
again?
Kristi again. Yeah.
Oh,
we'll
no.
pop her back up when she comes
okay.
in. Yeah, Ian was like, ooh, ley lines. And Enzo said dragon pass. I like that name. Yeah, it's a very cool name for it.
Yeah. Also little known, that's where Feng Shui comes from, is from the dragon pass. Yeah. A little interesting there.
Yes.
All right, what we got next?
Okay, Enzo's up next with notebook 4, page 32.
Okay. Let's see here. This one is numbered, so it won't take long.
Yay! That's always helpful for you.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, so this is we are on
Enzo said the Smithsonian got her.
So we are on the Mandelas.
Nice.
And this page is on David Byrne from the Talking Heads. So the reason why we're talking about this is there's a theory that that David Burns is the singer from the 80s band The Talking Heads. And a lot of people have theories that he was one of the first experiencers of Mandela and that he wrote it into his songs. And the one that they really point to is the song Once in a Lifetime. And literally what I have here is the lyrics. So I'm just going to read the lyrics out. And they're saying that as the song progresses, it's him realizing that the world he is in is not the one that he had been in. He feels like he's slipped into a different line. And as you listen to the lyrics, it kind of seems that way. So I'm just going to read the lyrics because that's what's here. So
Enzo said he's never heard of it. Neither had I. That's cool.
Yeah. And everyone knows this song. If you'll go and look it up, you know it. It's just the lyrics are a little odd at first and you won't quite pick up on it yet. And you may ask yourself, how do I work this? And you may ask yourself, where is that large automobile? And you may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful house. And you may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful wife. And then the refrain, same as it ever was, same as it ever was, same as it ever was. What is this beautiful house? Same as it ever was. Where does that highway go to? Same as it ever was. Am I right? Am I wrong? Same as it ever was. My God, what have I done? Same as it ever was. Time isn't holding up. Time isn't at a risk. Same as it ever was. And then it just sits there and repeats. And they say a lot of his other songs make references to this too in weird roundabout ways. So interesting.
That is. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, what do we got?
Okay, Ian's up next. Book 2, page 53.
All right. I had a spill.
Uh-oh.
It's all right.
Oh, no.
This is one of the folders. This is one of the folders where I just threw in all my loose stuff. So we're going to find out.
I've got a couple of file tubs full of folders of stuff.
Oh, okay. So this is kind of fun. what does it say? That song
It
now
just
means
said that.
something totally different to me now. Yeah. Mandela is weird, and we will be doing a Mandela, let me tell you, because that's one of my favorite topics to do. So this page is, and I'm gonna let you know. So like, besides the folders, beside the notebooks, once in a while I grab a folder. I have all this loose research that I do, and I've been recently trying to get it kind of gathered up, and I don't have it all sorted yet, but it's literally just piles of whatever I found in these notebooks. So I'm using or in these folders. So I'm using them like the notebooks. This page is actually a local Bigfoot story
Nice.
that was given to us. Now, I'm not going to say any names, of course, because all of our stuff is given to our team anonymously. That's how we work. Your name will never pop up if you give us a story, unless you're wanting us to use it for something. So, and this one's a weird one, so I'm just going to read it straight from the page. Right? One time we went raccoon hunting as kids with my dad out on the government ground out by Monster Bridge. Now, Monster Bridge for us is a little bridge out west of Caney here in our famous Sandhills area, where we have a lot of Bigfoot activity, missing time, disappearing, reappearing houses, little people, cryptids, blah, blah, blah. I have been coon hunting there for many years, and my dad many before that. I have never been afraid of the dark or what is in the dark before. I was about 16. We got out and parked on the bridge. It was kind of an eerie, foggy, no moon kind of night. We let our hound out of the truck, and he immediately took off to the woods. We had to walk through some really tall grass. He opened up on a coon right off the bat, and what that means is that he started baying, signaling that he had found a raccoon. He was trailing it. Then out of nowhere, mid-bark, it sounded like he got choked. Then we didn't hear anything else. Even my dad said that it was weird. So we sat and listened a while in the dark to see if we could hear him open up again. He was quiet, so we started to shine our lights all around. Nothing. Then we hear what sounded like walking. It was so heavy, it couldn't be a small critter such as a coon or a rabbit, a possum or an armadillo. It was something very large. At first, my brother and I were getting creeped out because it was getting close to us. We said, "Dad, did you hear that?" My dad, an avid hunter, shrugged it off, saying, "Oh, it's probably a deer." We heard the dog again, and he was just north of us about 30 yards away, so we knew it wasn't him. My dad shined his light around and didn't see any deer. We decided to walk a little further towards the dog and then stopped again a bit to listen for him to bark. When they tree a coon, they have a significant bark indicating that they have treed it. So we sat in the dark. Then we hear this crunching, large footstep sound again. By this point, we had lights on, all looking around us. Nothing. Then it walked directly in front of us in a clearing out of the tall weeds. You could hear it crunch as if it was a large human, just right in front of us, in the wide open. We shined our lights, but still nothing. I felt the hairs on my arm stand up. It was the creepiest feeling ever. Even my dad said, "That's weird." It was like right in front of us. Then our dog did the weird choking bark again. And my dad says, "Well, looks like we're not going to get one tonight, guys." We're so glad he said that because we were ready to be the heck out of there. So basically, they saw a invisible Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure it probably either scared the dog or it kicked that dog. That's why they heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the very, very many strange Bigfoot stories we have from our area.
Yeah.
It's the only one we have where it was invisible, though, besides a personal one that we have. So, yep. All right. So, do we have anything else?
We do. We have a couple more. Tony, look for page 60.
Okay. Ooh, we're going to go deep back here. Let's see here. Yeah, the Bigfoot stories around here are insane.
They are. They're
Yeah, Brian Terrell, our local cryptid guy, has really fallen in love with the area.
He has. I remember telling him we had like, I could think of 20 off the top of my head to send him. He was like, okay, send them. And then when he gets them, he's like, you sent me over 20. Yeah, Brian, we were telling you we really have that many. He was shocked.
Yes. We really do have that many. Okay. So this is on Quarks in the Supercode. And everybody at home just went, huh? What? So we were researching simulation theory. If you want to hear more on that, go check out On the Fringe at the What If Tomorrow podcast. We did it like two-ish years ago. We did simulation theory.
Yeah.
It's basically where it's a theory that we're actually all part of like a computer type simulation or a game. And that the weird glitches in the matrix and the time slips and things that are happening to us are mess ups in the computer code, basically, or something similar.
We might
to
have
that.
to touch on that one again.
Yeah, it's super interesting, and frankly, it's very frightening. Yeah, it's frightening at the same time. So this page is on Quarks in the Supercode. So, theoretical physicist James Gate claimed he had identified what appeared to be actual computer code embedded in the equations of string theory that describe the fundamental particles of our universe. He says he found error-correcting codes, and error-correcting codes are what make web browsers work, by the way. So it automatically corrects things and fixes stuff. He found these in our DNA chains. The codes that people use to code computers every day to make fixes in regular coding along the way are deep embedded in our DNA chains. Yeah.
Because that's not concerning at all. That's not freaky a bit.
It's not concerning at all, let me tell you. Yeah, it really, I remember when we started really working on this, it was freaking me out because I had, my daughter at the time was really into playing Sims, and it would concern me because she would do horrible things to her Sims. She would let them catch on fire and then just get rid of the door so they couldn't leave and just let them burn up. And all I could think of is like, are we in a long chain of people doing this to other simulation after simulation? Like, is she seriously the god of some dude who's burning up in his house? I just didn't want to think about it.
That's freaky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Enzo said we're a software patch. And
pretty much. It looks like it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we are more of a virus than a software patch. Okay, the next one is Chris with book 1, page 28.
Okay. 28. Oh, okay. So this is a page on, what are we doing? Oh, these are the different glyphs that they found that showed like different people who weren't supposed to be in the Americas at the time were, like the runes and the Egyptian glyphs, the Anubis caves and stuff like that. So this page has a bronze belt with Egyptian hieroglyphs found by a woman in 1956 in California. An Egyptian coin was found in northern Utah. It was found in a farmer's field while plowing in 1897 by Victor Crockett. A star map was found in a bluff shelter in Arkansas in the early 1970s. It represents the constellations during the months of February and March in hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphs represented in every state, the bulk of which follow the Arkansas River, Mississippi, and Ohio, which makes absolute sense. If you're going to have foreigners come in from out of country, they're going to follow the river paths. So that makes sense. Hieroglyphs present in Heavener and Spiro, Oklahoma, which we've discussed before.
Yeah.
The Beverly Mystery Stone from Beverly, Kansas. Actually, I think this is the one that you had talked about not too long ago. I said, yeah, we did that on the show previously. The Mystery Stone in Kansas.
The which one? You're cutting out a little bit.
The Mystery Stone in Kansas.
Oh
The
yeah,
Beverly.
yeah. We ended up not using it because I didn't realize we'd used it before.
Yeah. It was dug out of a Lincoln County field just outside of Beverly, Kansas, circa 500 AD. Inscribed stone tablet in ancient Gaelic. The inscription points to a marker for a grave, and it's on display in the Karen House Museum in Lincoln.
Actually,
And the
look at
last, yeah, there
laying
you
on
go.
my desk.
The last thing on this page is the Missouri Sphinx head. June 2007, found in a creek bed near St. Louis, Missouri. An amulet-sized sphinx head made of yellow quartz includes columns of square glyphs on each side of the face. So
I remember that one, yeah.
some more of that. I don't know if Mark's watching anymore, but it's some more of his history that I'll prefer not to talk about.
That's awesome.
All right. Do we have any more? Are we done?
That was it.
That was it.
That was it.
All right. Well, oh yeah, we went overtime, of course, because we had Kristi here and we were talking about
Crystal hasn't made it back yet either, so, and I didn't see from her, so
it's okay. She was here. We appreciate if you're watching, Kristi. We so appreciated having you on, and we can't wait to see you at the Paracon.
Yay!
All right. So, do you have anything else to add before we do the outro?
I do not. I think we have covered everything that I definitely wanted to get through tonight. So,
okay, awesome. All right. So, okay, thank you to our guest, of course, to Kristi for coming on. Make sure to see her at Bordertown Paracon in Caney, Kansas, September 28th. Catch an all-new show every other Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central. Our next show will be September 11th at 7 p.m. Yep. Links to our research and show notes can be found on our website, www.bordertownnormal.com, and make sure to click the button at the top that says Bordertown Strange. That's where you'll find that stuff out. And also check out the Paracon while you're on the page. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all we got there. Yeah, so we will be posting flyers soon about what our next show will be. And remember to watch out for all those pesky time portals. Don't go
for sure.
Yeah. So remember, keep it weird, keep it strange, and it's all connected. Good night.
Good night, everybody.